Are you like me, and a big fan of both mechs and 40k, but aren't super in love with the hunchback look of Imperial Knights? Now there's nothing majorly wrong with them. They fit the general style of decrepit tech that 40k has, but specifically they don't match the idea of noble knights their faction is supposed to have, and my personal taste in mecha is a bit more traditional and upright. So I'm going to show you how I converted one of my knights to be more upright. This older build that I use for my profile pictures in most places was inspired by one of Emerson Tung's Steam Knights, but there's a few basic steps to convert it that could easily be reused to make any questoris knight upright. The only real part that needs changing is the torso, so the legs, arms and armour can be left as is, which is mostly what I did, or they could be changed to match whatever style of knight you want to go. The main part is rearranging this neck piece that normally sits at the front. It's already the right size and connects the body to the head, can just be glued in at the top of the chest at a different angle. Then, after a little cutting and sanding, the head can be glued on top securely, and you've got the basic posture already adjusted. There's a few more things after that, like the torso is quite a bit longer than it needs to be since the head is no longer at the front. On mine, I cut the side chest panels back a bit, and for the area behind the neck, I filled in the space with plasticard and covered it with spare knight parts and green stuff wire. Then, with it upright, there's a big empty area at the front of the chest that needs filling in. I started with an underlayer of green stuff wires before adding some armour. Now, building at this larger scale can be tricky because you're more limited for parts, and kits with pieces this big are on the pricier side. I used one of the knight's shoulder plates as a new chest. It works, and was the closest thing I could find to match the chest of the inspiration art, but it's not something I'm completely happy with the end result of, as it still sticks out quite a bit. If you want to try a build like this, the new plastic Cerastus knights that came out after I made this might have some better pieces to use as chest armour that still match the Imperial Knight aesthetic. Alongside the reused shoulder turn chest piece, I used some smaller armour pieces from armigers to cover more around the neck. Then one last change on this worth making note of is its lance. I used the lance weapon head from Tarot Model Maker, which is a great source of bits for customising knights with. I just glued the lance onto the front of one of the knight's weapon bodies, along with a few other knight and doomcrawler bits to armour in detail. While I'm talking about other ways to build knights, here's what I did with the armigers after I used their armour on the questoris. Attaching their legs to the arm sockets with the help of some green stuff does a lot to change their look. One, I made more of a walking turret by using their leftover hip parts to mount autocannons on top, and the other I made more animalistic by giving it T-Rex style smaller arms, which were parts from cataphrams combined with some spare chainswords. The bases for all the knights were pretty simple, just some pattern plasticard with green stuff wire, and also some spare crates on the questoris, just trying to keep it a kind of mechanical industrial style. The armigers were painted in my usual AdMech scheme, I've covered it in a few other videos, but the upright knight questoris was a new scheme with a lot of things that I tried out for the first time and have kept doing to this day. The underlying frame was primed black, heavily dry brushed with iron warriors, and lightly dry brushed with lead belcher to highlight. Then certain mechanical details were picked out with Balthasar gold. Most of the armour panels were sprayed with a silver lead belcher primer, with the trim left as that colour, and the inner parts of the panels were darkened with a thinned down mixture of basilicanum grey and snakebite leather contrasts. For the white panels, since that can be a bit of a tricky colour to paint, I went with a simpler option and just primed those panels separately with a white spray. Then I regularly painted the trim with either lead belcher or retributor gold, and just shaded them with a very thinned down Agrax Earthshade. And that's how I made my upright knight Lancelot. I hope it was helpful seeing the conversion, and maybe even inspired some of you to do a similar build. This was just a short video on an older build I've had questions about, that I could put out while I'm working on another knight build that's taken some time, and is my biggest conversion yet, so keep an eye out for that in the future. But if you want to keep up with my building in the meantime, I post more frequently on Twitter and Instagram. I've also got a Patreon if you want to support me directly, and you can find weekly project updates, future build ideas, and sometimes building tips there too. I'd also like to thank my first Patreon supporter, Lich's Lab, who you may already be aware of, as they also make Warhammer conversion videos that you should definitely check out. And until that next night video, thank you for watching.